All right, so we want to pick up in chapter 7 in the Basic of Biblical Greek, William Mouse's Greek grammar book. And last week we looked at the nominative and dative, nominative and the accusative, and I got your quiz and I graded it and sent it back. The one thing I want to point out on your quiz, I don't know if you saw the results. A couple of things I want to point out. Number one, it is better, not an absolute necessity, but it is better long term to learn the paradigm, the case endings, with just the case endings and not the stem, the connecting vowel or the vowel ending in the stem. That will make a difference in the long term. I know when I first learned it, I learned it with the connecting vowel, just easier to learn. And because it was harder to learn just sort of one letter in that paradigm, at least for me, it was easier with the connecting vowel included. But that did make it a little more complicated, a little more difficult down the road. There is great value of recognizing the case ending, as well as the case ending with the connecting vowel or stem ending. When the quiz asked for the case ending, you gave the connecting vowel or stem ending with the case ending. And so I only took off like half for each one of those, so it wasn't much, but it's still, it was important to recognize the difference between the case ending and then the case ending with the connecting vowel.
Yes, sir.
That makes sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Also, pay attention to when it asks for the parent or for the I'm blank here. When it asks for the why have I gone blank? Parsing. When it asks for the parsing, the last thing that you include is the inflected meaning. The inflected meaning is the meaning in the text itself. So you had that correct throughout, except for one with hauton, and that would be its inflected meaning would be, because it's hauton, it's in the accusative. That would make it functioning as the direct object. So it wouldn't be he, she, or it. It'd be him, and because it's in the masculine, it would be him.
Okay, that's a question I have, because it really confused me, because the nominative or the neuter singular and on both nominative and accusative is on as well, or ends with that new.
Or it's accusative. That's right. So it could be either or. You had identified it as the neuter, if I remember right, and you didn't include the masculine. The neuter would have been
nominative slash accusative, and then neuter instead of masculine.
So the neuter would have been it.
Yes,
but yeah. So, but he, she, or it is not really the correct inflected meaning. It would have been more likely him or possibly it. So anyway, I just took a little off for that. Is all.
Yes, sir.
So you did quite well, by the way. So not really hard. I think you seem to be grasping it okay. Any questions thus far?
Not thus far.
Okay, so Friday, Damien's getting a wisdom tooth pulled, and so you'll have Andres is going to cover Friday, and basically you should be going over any review of chapter 6 and chapter 7, but predominantly any homework questions that you might have and vocabulary. So you should hopefully you should be able to get through all of that. If you have already a good understanding, it won't be difficult. If you're struggling with something, that's the time to say, I don't really understand. Dave didn't make any sense at all in this area. And they'll say, you're right, I had the same problem. And then you have to figure it out. So hopefully that will help. I did want to mention in Mouse's BBG, Basic Biblical Greek book, he has an exegetical insight, and I thought it was interesting to point out here. Now we're moving from the nominative to accusative. We're going to move into the genitive and dative case. And here it talks about in Luke 2, verse 14, the King James, a peace on earth and goodwill toward men. Well, the text there puts the word in the genitive case. And there's a older translation puts it in the genitive case. An older manuscript, excuse me, puts it in genitive case. Where some of the newer manuscripts, I think it has it in a dative. I think it was a dative case. And there's a significant difference in how it's translated then. And so the King James and New King James will say goodwill toward men, but most scholars now recognize the earlier original manuscripts and the sort of idiomatic meaning behind the genitive that's there, referring to whom God rests his favor. So to be basically pointing out peace on earth among those whom God favors, which would be a much smaller class of people, right? There'd be a significant difference here between if you're looking at it from the Dative. I think it was the Dative. I'm going on memory now. Let's see if it says that in the text here.
It says the difference between the King James Version and others is the difference between the nominative and the genitive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nominative, not the Dative, excuse me. So, eudokia, where in the genitive, in the plural, it's eudokios. And so ultimately, it's the question of whether or not, if you take the earlier manuscripts, which most translations do, then it's really referring to a smaller class or group of people, those of whom, peace on earth for those whom God finds favor. And versus in the nominative, which is the older or more recent manuscripts, probably, I didn't look it up, okay, but more likely 10th century, 9th century, 11th, 12th century kind of thing, versus, I didn't look up the manuscript history on this, but versus maybe a 3rd, 4th, or 5th century manuscript. The earlier manuscripts in the genitive case would refer to a smaller group of people whom God's favor rests upon, versus in a nominative case in the later manuscripts would be referring to more collectively all people, which is how the King James and New King James translates that, mostly because they're using earlier, what we refer to as earlier manuscripts, in other words, 10th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th century manuscripts. Generally, I'd have to look up exactly which one it is. But some of the older manuscripts definitely have it in genitive case, genitive plural, and that does change how we understand its translation. And so understanding the genitive can really be value added. Genitive is also one of the most difficult interpretative cases. There's so much variation of possibilities, but we're going to kind of focus on some real core stuff, and then we'll kind of gradually expand from that core down the road. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we talked about last week various New Testament Greek cases. In particular, there are 5 cases that go across nouns, articles, pronouns, adjectives, and participles. And we'll get to articles. We've already touched on articles. We've already seen a little bit of that. Pronouns are coming up soon. Adjectives are quickly. Participles will be a little ways down the road. But you see these 5 cases predominantly are the nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and vocative. The nominative, of course, functions as a subjectival. And the genitive is possessive, and dative would be the indirect object case, and the accusative, of course, the objective case. And the vocative, which we probably won't do much with because there's so few of them, is with a direct address. Like if I said, Samuel, wake up. That would be a vocative, a direct address to you. Okay. In English, we only have 3 cases. We have the subjective, objective, and possessive. So the possessive aligns with the Greek genitive. Subjective aligns with the Greek nominative. The objective would align with the Greek accusative and the Greek dative, because in English the objective includes the object and the indirect object. So there's 3 cases in English, which in Greek there's a lot more specificity with the 5 different cases. Okay, so that kind of gives you a little bit of a picture there. We looked at that last week. including sort of the distribution of these cases with nouns. Now, I didn't look at the articles and anything else, but for nouns, here's my little wand here. Okay, so for nouns, the subjective case is obviously the larger one where the noun's functioning as a subject in the nominative case by 31% of the time, but closely following is the accusative, about 29% of the time, functioning as the direct object. The genitive, which we're going to look at today, and the dative are not far behind. Genitive, you'll find the nouns, about 25% of them are in the Greek Bible, are going to function possessively, or are going to function genitively. We're going to see later as we go. Genitive isn't just about possessiveness, but we're going to start with that as a core and sort of our primary. But about 25% of the nouns are going to function genitively. And then the indirect object, which would be the dative, and the vocative less than 1%. Does this make sense to you? You okay? You're comfortable with this so far?
I'm picking it up little by little.
There you go. Well, that's all we ask. So now when we're talking about case endings, we're talking about just a suffix added to the noun, okay, or to the adjective or the pronoun, whatever. We're just adding a suffix. Really, the case ending, and even here I have it's a little inaccurate. This is the case ending. This is the connecting vowel, or really the stem ending. And so we add the suffix, the case ending, to the stem. And when you have the omicron, the connecting vowel, the sigma for the nominative is going to be, for the nominative case, it's going to be the sigma. And so apostolos is going to be the subject, apostle or messenger, would be functioning as a subject in our translation. When we put the apostolon, it's the same apostle or the same messenger, whichever translation you use, and we still have the omicron connecting vowel, but now it's in the the new case ending, and it's functioning accusatively as the direct object. So in this case, it's the same apostle, but now he's the object of whatever the verb is stating or requiring, instead of the subject of the verb. And so, and here this is more accurate here. The apostola is the exact same thing. We change our case ending, and ultimately we're having, we understand how it functions in the sentence. You okay, right? Makes sense? We did this. You did this pretty well in the quiz.
Yes, sir.
All right. And we also have, with every word is going to be its function, its case, all right, its case, which will tell us how it functions, but it's also going to give us a gender. And the key thing to understand is a noun is either going to be masculine, feminine, or neuter. It's not going to be all three. We're talking about a noun, okay? I'm talking about a noun, not an adjective or pronoun, but a noun. And the gender doesn't change. It never changes. So harmatolos is always going to be a masculine word, a masculine noun. In other words, harmatolos will not be feminine. It's not going to be neuter. It's always masculine. That's important because when you add an adjective, the bad sinner, well, bad is an adjective, and it's going to have to agree with however apostolos is being used. It's being used as a subject, being used as the direct object or possessive. It's going to have to agree with it. And so it's going to have to be able to be more flexible. We'll get more into that later. But here, apostolos is always masculine, so any adjective that applies is going to function masculine in a masculine structure. So sinner is masculine, but harmatia, sin, is feminine. Now, we are talking grammatical gender. We're not talking natural gender, right? We're not talking about a man, a male, being a sinner, but we're talking about in grammatical syntax, we're talking about specifically the word functioning in a masculine, or functioning in the syntax in the sentence in a masculine way, and harmatia in a feminine way. That can be confusing for some, but I think you got it. Let me ask, you okay with that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a lot like Spanish, as
Yeah,
far as there is masculine and there's feminine,
yeah,
and so yeah.
yeah. I don't think feminine or Spanish has neuter though. I don't remember.
No, I don't. I think it's only masculine and feminine, but
Yeah,
just having that, that omicron, okay, and then the alpha, it really kind of helps you figure out, okay, where is
that
it?
is really critical. I'm glad you noticed that and retain that because the more you begin to recognize the pattern or the declension, then the easier it is to try to identify the word with its masculine, feminine, or neuter, and this kind of stuff. So
Now
even if you
these,
don't know the word, if you don't know the word meaning, you can often kind of get a feel for this is clearly going to be a nominative case, and it's going to be a masculine, although it could be neuter, but the word itself is masculine, so
mhm.
it's not possible to be neuter. You may not know that automatically, but you can narrow it down. In other words, this is automatically feminine because it does not have a stem. That's the actual connecting vowel or case ending or stem ending. So it's also in the nominative case at this presentation. But it is a feminine word, and that's recognizable in part because of the stem ending with the alpha or eta, right?
Now these two words, they're the stems of how they would appear
Say it
in
again. I missed the first part.
these two words, amartia. Um, these are the stem words.
Well, yes and no. Harmatia is the stem, but it has there is in this case because its lexical form, the dictionary form, is the nominative, right? And so
Mhm.
in the nominative form, lexical form for the first declension, feminine, mostly feminine, not all feminine, but predominantly feminine, there is no case ending. So
Mhm.
it just shows up as the stem ending. Okay.
Now,
Here, if you want just the stem, you have to get rid of that. And there's the stem,
okay,
harmatolo.
that's what I was about to ask. It's not armatolo doesn't have the stem of armatia because armatia is feminine, armatolo
No,
is
well, what you're talking
masculine.
about possibly is the root. And I've not looked up this word to see what the root is, or this word to see if they're the same root. I've not looked that up. But what you're talking about is they may come from the same root, but when you put the stem ending to it, that kind of tells you there may be how it might how it functions, I guess. Not
Yes, sir.
functions, but anyway, what its gender is. And here's a good example. Now, number, we only got two numbers in Greek and in Spanish and in English. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's singular or plural. That's it. So it's a singular or plural, singular or plural. And in English, we add an S to the word generally, or ES, S or ES to make it plural. In Greek, singular is going to have the S, the case ending. We're still about case ending now. And the nominative is going to have the singular, but in the plural, it's going to have the iota. And so this would be apostolos, an apostle or a messenger. And this would be apostoloi, which would be apostles plural or messengers plural.
Mhm.
Okay? So our case ending gives us case, right? Case is how it functions, right? It's either going to function as the subject, direct object, possessive, or indirect object. And so we have case, we have gender, right, which is either going to be masculine, feminine, or neuter. And we also have number, right? And number is either going to be singular or plural. And so all your parsing is going to address all three of those things, okay? So you're going to recognize how it functions as in the nominative case, in the genitive case, the accusative case, the dative case. You're going to recognize its gender, masculine, feminine, or neuter, and you're going to recognize its number, singular or plural, for every single noun. Okay?
Mhm.
All right. All right. So declensions can be a little confusing for people, but I've looked at it this way. Declensions are nothing more than a pattern. That's really important. So there are really three main patterns in nouns. There's first pattern, first declension, second declension, third declension, right? So the first declension is pretty straightforward. This is part of your noun rule number one, right? Primarily feminine nouns. It says primarily because there are some exceptions. Primarily feminine nouns will end in alpha or eta, right? The alpha or eta, and alpha or eta, and the stem ends in a connecting vowel. The alpha or eta connecting vowel, the stem ending, okay? So like here, or an eta. For second declension ones, right? Second declension, first. It's going to be an omicron, and that's going to be our connecting vowel or stem ending. And it will be in gender either masculine or neuter, one of the two, if it has the second declension omicron. Now, the third declension, which we're not going to do for a little while, it's going to have a consonant in its stem ending, and it can be masculine, feminine, or neuter. It's not going to be all three, but the word itself, pneuma, happens to be neuter. Remember what pneuma means? Is that a no?
I feel like I should know it.
Yeah, I feel like you should too. Well, let's start with this word. What is this word right here?
Angalia.
Angalia, very good. Now, what does it mean?
Angel.
Angel or
messenger.
Yeah, messenger. Apostolos,
Apostle.
of course, apostle. Pneuma would be spirit or wind.
Okay.
So, yeah, I know you know that. We just didn't. We've got to get used to it. So when it has a consonant stem ending, it's going to be in a third declension, and the word itself can be masculine, feminine, or neuter. In this case, it's neuter. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when we say declension, we're talking either first declension, second declension, or third declension. Those are nothing more than patterns. So when the stem ends in an omicron, it's second declension, and there's a certain pattern the case endings follow. And so you sort of see the pattern, makes life easier. In first declension, we're going to see a stem ending with an alpha or eta, and there's a pattern those case endings follow. That's all we're saying. In the third declension, it's going to be a consonant in the stem ending, and the case endings will have a certain pattern to it. And so once you sort of see that, it makes it a lot easier to recognize the word and the pattern, so you can very quickly think about, oh, nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative, singular or plural, masculine, feminine, or neuter. It makes it much easier to sort of recognize that very quickly once you sort of understand. We're talking about patterns in first declension, feminine nouns, patterns in second declension, masculine or neuter, patterns in third declension, which can be masculine, neuter, or feminine. And so, okay?
Yes, sir.
So we looked at nominative and accusative cases last week, so I'm just doing a review here. So the nominative functions as a subject, right? And the accusative functions as the direct object. And so basically what we're saying is that if you have the text in the Greek says, well, let me let you read this text right here. You read it for me, okay? What does that text say right there?
Agape. Othios. Hothios.
Okay. Yes.
Hothios. That's
I
right.
want to be consistent. If this is going to be theos, then this needs to be so it would be ha-theos.
Hothios.
So let's still make one long and one short.
Yes,
Let's be
sir.
consistent in how we do it. If you want to make them long, that's okay too. I don't. But
No, I'd
all right.
rather follow that. So ha-theos.
Yeah.
Ton Kosmon.
Kosmon. Very good. All right. Ton Kosmon. So we're not going to get to verbs for a while until Greek 2. Is that right? Yeah. Agape, here's the verb meaning loves. Ha-theos, you've learned that, okay, there's our stem ending. What let me ask you this question. With that omicron there, what declension is that? First, second, or third?
Second.
Very good. Now, you see this sigma. How do you know that it's functioning as the subject in the nominative, right? Because the sigma. But you also know because of what? The article. The article is a very critical key reference. If you learn the article paradigms, ha, he, ha, ta, then the masculine, feminine, neuter for nominative, and on down the line, then even if you don't quite get cosmon and you know ton, oh, well, that's the accusative, so it's functioning as the object. Ton, cosmon, here we have our case ending, and we have our little connecting vowel, and that makes it also second declension. It's going to follow that pattern, so that's why the noun is there, and the noun is going to be in the objective accusative case. And we know that because, yes, in the, let me go back to something here. Hold on. I'm going to double check something that I don't misspeak, which I do often. However, I try to correct myself.
Now that while you're looking at that word ton, that's the.
Well, yes and no. I want to be careful.
Okay.
We generally want to say the, but the article. Notice that in Greek there is no. We call it a definite article. In English we have a definite article the, and we have an indefinite article a or am. Right? We don't have an indefinite article in Greek. There's no a or an in terms of there isn't anything that declares an indefiniteness. And technically, there is no definite article. It's just an article, and that article doesn't always get translated as the. It will do a whole lot more than the. For now, we're going to focus on the, but before we get through, you'll see how this ha, hey, ta will do a whole lot more than just the. And so you'll find some cases where the in English is translated. Some cases it's not. Some cases it functions what's called an antecedent. It's pointing back to something. Some cases it's going to function as a pronoun. Again, antecedent pointing back to something like a he or she. So it's going to do a whole lot more. But it is very critical for recognizing the text. You'll find prepositions, when we get to prepositions, will oftentimes be preceded by an article, because that whole phrase it's pointing back to something, and that article tells us what it points back to. Anyway, that's further than we should have gone. I apologize. Let me skip all that. To answer your question, here we have in the accusative case. I want to look something up real quick. Let me find it on this page just to make sure I don't mistake something. That's not it. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So in here, this noun can be accusative or nominative in the neuter case, right? How do we know it's an accusative case? Because the article is ton and not ta. If it was ta, it'd be in the nominative case.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you want to recognize what I always try to do is, if there's a sentence, then break that sentence into its parts. Okay, here's a prepositional phrase of the sentence, so that's a part. Here's the subject, so that's a part. I break it into parts so you can see what connects with what. It helps anyway. All right, so that's not really where we're going. Let me clear this slide because it's too much junk on here. All right, so agape, hate, oston, kosmon. Agape, we said, is a verb. We know loves. Hate os, we know is a subject in a nominative case because we have our sigma in a second declension pattern with the omicron connecting vowel, and our articles, also the ha, the omicron. And then we see our direct object, especially with the ton and the cosmon here. And so literally this reads, loves God the world. But in English, we translated God loves the world because subject precedes the verb and direct object follows the verb. But in Greek, the order itself can make a difference in emphasis. Not always, but can make a difference in emphasis. There's a normal pattern, and if it changes its pattern, there's probably a reason. Sometimes the pattern can make something more emphatic. All right, we kill that one to death. Did we kill it? You okay?
No, I'm good. I just, with that article before Cosmon, the ton, it also, it's neat because it also shows, wouldn't that be, it'd be in the masculine sense because of the ton, masculine singular.
Well, let's address that a little bit closer. So
because ton is in the accusative masculine singular.
If you look at your paradigm for the article, right, and all we've done so far is the nominative and the accusative, right, and we have our masculine, we have our feminine, and we have our neuter. What's the article for masculine? Nominative masculine.
Nominative is ha.
What about feminine?
Hey.
Okay. What about neuter?
On or han.
Go back. What is it? Neuter.
No, I was thinking of the other one because singing the
song. We're not there yet. Now accusative. What's the accusative for masculine?
The accusative for masculine is ton.
We're doing singular, right? We're just doing singular.
Yes,
accusative for masculine is what?
Ton.
Yeah.
And then tain, and then ta. I can't see nothing on your screen if you're working on it.
Oh no! What happened? This is where I'm a little concerned with how this is. The process is for me to use QuickTime and set up a new recording. Okay, I'm seeing it went to. So when I changed slides, it messed it up for some reason. So let me do this. Let me go back to.
It's just because I said something, and now we.
It is your fault. There's no question. Couldn't be mine.
That's okay.
Yeah, right. All right. Let me see if I choose the iPad. It does not, which means I gotta shut the QuickTime down and bring it back on again. This is the thing. I'm a little frustrated. It's right now the only process I know, and this is the reason I don't have Alan using this yet, because I want to make sure.
Well, Alan's always swapping.
I have to bring up the QuickTime player and then go to File and set New Recording, and then I get a new recording, and then I can select where I'm recording. But again, it did not see my iPad, so let me disconnect my iPad, reconnect it. Okay, there's my iPad now. Let's see, there we go. All right. All right, now let me do share screen. Go back to, okay, share screen. And I should have the option, and there it is. No, not that one. Yeah. Okay. There it is. Yeah. So it's a little bit of a process, and until I feel comfortable with this, I'm not going to have Alan use it. But I like the tool. It's just it's not set up to use a tablet, whether it be iPad or any other tablet. As a separate window and share it. So there's a process to do it. QuickTime to new movie recording, and then I could select the tablet and then share the screen.
You think it'd be easier to go through the Viber board at the school?
Well, I don't know. I'm not so sure. If I'm there, maybe yes. But I don't know. I haven't played with that yet. All right, so let's get back to work before we lose time here. We got about 30 minutes. Because we haven't even got to the accusative or the genitive case yet. Okay, so So ha he ta ton 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 ton, and I got to put my accent here, right? So you were saying this ton is what?
No, the last one is ta.
Ta. I mean, yeah. Thank you. I apologize. It is.
Now I was saying with cosmon, you have ton, which could show that it's in the masculine singular, accusative masculine singular. That cosmon is masculine and not a neuter word, even though it ends in an on, like a neuter singular or a neuter plural or neuter accusative would be.
Okay, do it again. I was looking at something else. I apologize.
No, you're good.
This.
Okay, so the cosmon,
yeah,
the case ending for it can either be masculine singular accusative or nominative neuter singular or accusative neuter, right? But the ton, the article before it, shows that it's a masculine singular accusative.
All right, so you're saying, so I understand what you're saying. You're saying cosmon in the noun form can be masculine, singular, and neuter. Not masculine singular. That wouldn't be right. Did you say masculine singular? It can't be masculine singular. It could be accusative singular.
The accusative.
It could be neuter.
Because the accusative for masculine singular is on.
Wait. It can be nominative in the neuter, all right? If it was a neuter word, it's not. Wait a minute. I can't remember really.
Well, the lexical one is cosmos, so it would be masculine.
Yeah, that's right. You're exactly right. So I'm trying to understand what you're saying. Here's the thing I'm confused about that you're saying.
What I was asking
is... Here's the thing I'm confused about. Let me finish. So it can only be ton, accusative singular, masculine. That's all it can be, right?
Yes, sir.
Because of the article, right? Now, if you're looking at the word, right, if we do the paradigm, nominative, accusative, come on, dummy. Nominative, accusative, is our masculine, our feminine, our neuter, and what would be the case ending for nominative?
Is a sigma.
What would be the case ending for feminine?
Just either the alpha or the eta.
Wrong.
No, for the accusative? Oh.
No, for the nominative. What would be the case ending for feminine nominative?
There's no case ending.
There you go. What would be the case ending for a neuter nominative?
The noon.
Right. Now, what about the accusative masculine? What would be the case ending?
On.
No, that would be the connecting vowel with the case ending. Okay.
This is noon, and then it's all noons underneath there. So noon.
All right,
I keep on singing that song that the.
Yeah, I like that song. I do.
So it's all noon underneath there.
Oh, now I'm not in control of. What happens is I hit with my hand the side and it moves to the next. And now because it's changed size, I can't even get to.
Can you pinch and zoom in or zoom out?
I'm trying to do. Okay. Oh, discard annotations. Okay, so we're back to. We'll go back to. Here we are. Okay. All right. So we lost everything we did.
You're fine.
All right. So anyway, so the accusative and the nominative for the noun, right? A sigma, nothing, a noon, and in the accusative is going to be a noon noon, noon case ending, right?
Yes, sir.
Part of one of our rules is the nominative and the accusative is going to have the same form in the end, the case ending, right? So accusative is noon, noon, noon ending. It's pretty straightforward. So the article helps us tremendously to recognize, oh, it cannot be this neuter. Go away. It cannot be the neuter nominative or accusative. It must be because the article con is only accusative singular masculine. So
okay. Yeah, that's what I was asking, if we could look at that ton and it says, okay, this shows me that this word is masculine because can only appear for.
It will help differentiate between the masculine and the neuter, regardless of whether it's accusative. Well, be accusative, because in the accusative you got all these noons, right? Noon, noon, and so you got all those noons. And the accusative, and you also got noon for the nominative neuter. And so the article, whether it be ta or ton for neuter or whatever else, is going to help differentiate whether it's this or this. So we'll help you figure that out. Yeah, but you already knew. The key thing to understand is, cause Moss is the lexical form, right? The nominative singular masculine form. It's masculine, the sigma, the omicron second declension. So you already knew that. So between knowing that and knowing that, you could figure it out. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's talk about, just to reiterate here and put it in terms of inflection. Inflection is nothing more than change, right? We're going to change, in this case, we're changing the case ending, the noun endings. Inflection is any change, right? And we're going to look at this pattern of second declension for masculine and neuter, and a pattern for first declension feminine. And so second declension masculine is going to have a certain pattern for the nominative, the genitive, the dative, and the accusative. It's going to have a different pattern, and may be some similar, for the nominative, accusative, nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative. For the neuter, so it follows that pattern because of the omicron in its connecting vowel or stem ending. Feminine, first declension, is because its stem ending is alpha or eta. Alpha or eta. There's no case ending in the nominative, but there is that noon in the accusative, right? And so here's what the connecting vowel. It says noun cases, but it's really plus connecting vowel. All right, so there's our case ending, there's our case ending, our case ending, our case ending, case ending, and case ending. For the accusative, no case ending for the nominative case. Okay, so that's what we looked at last week in the singular. Now we do the same thing in the plural, exact same thing. It's just a different case ending. We still have our root, we still have our stem with the omicron, we still have our stem at the omicron ending, the euangelion, and agape, basileia, our stem ending in the first declension. We just have a different, this is the upsilon sigma, the alpha sigma, alpha iota, alpha sigma for accusative versus our nominative. And that's, you just got to learn those patterns. That makes sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, and so here you see it in this paradigm. This is how I learned it. It's not the smartest way to learn it, but I hadn't changed my slides, okay? So it's better to learn just the case endings. There's the upsilon sigma, and this is one of the reasons it's better to learn that. The sigma here, the iota, the noon, there is no case ending. The noon, the alpha and the alpha. And you have right here in front of you noun rule 1, 2, and 3, right? The way this is normally set up in this paradigm, it's called a 2, 1, 2, right? Second declension masculine, first declension feminine, second declension neuter. That's almost always how it's presented in every single grammar book, okay? I don't know why, but it is, so, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, okay, and then you put it within the text. Logos, there's our nominative singular with the connecting vowel, logon. So this is definitely an accusative singular. It's a masculine word, so I know this is where it falls. So we do agape, basileia, euangelion. There's our neuter. This is a neuter word. In the accusative, logon, agape, basileion, legion. In the plural, same thing. There's our case endings, the omicron sigma, or upsilon sigma, excuse me, the iota, iota, and the alpha and the alpha. There's a sigma and the sigma. Those are the case endings. And so you got lagoi, agape, agapai, basilei, euangelei, lagos, and because that's actually a diphthong, lagus, agapas, basileos, and euangelia. That's really all there is to that. So we already looked at that, so I'm going to move forward. The article we already looked at, you got ha, he, ta, ton, ten, ta, hoi, hai, ta, and tus, tas, ta. Fun to say really fast, when you add the genitive and the dative to it. So
you really feel like you're speaking another language.
Yeah, it is another language. Yeah. It is fun to sing that song, and it really helps you learn it. Learning the article will help you learning the paradigms, case endings for the nouns as well. So noun rule 1, you did this on the quiz, no problem. Stems ending in alpha or eta, we've mentioned many times, is a first declension, and so we can see agape and hora, and it will be one or the other. We're not going to see agapa. It's going to be agape. That's the word. Hora is not going to be hore. It's going to be hora. That's the word how it ends. Stem ending in the omicron is second declension we've talked about, and it will have a certain pattern associated with its case endings, versus first declension will have a different pattern associated with its case endings. And stems ending in consonant, like this mu, will have a certain pattern associated in the third declension case ending. So different pattern, and we'll get to that one later. Now, rule 2, you've already seen, every neuter word has the same form in the nominative and the accusative, right? Same form in the nominative and the accusative. Same form in the nominative and the accusative. Now, rule number 3, all neuter words in an alpha in the nominative and accusative plural. Well, we just saw that. All neuter words in an alpha in the nominative and accusative plural. Pretty straightforward. So when you look at these patterns, I wish I had this without the connecting vowel. When you look at these patterns, you see sigma, nothing, noon. Pretty straightforward. Iota, alpha. Us, also sigma ending, but doesn't have the upsilon and alpha. You quickly begin to see a pattern. You'll see the pattern even more so when we add the genitive and dative. So let's go there. Okay. So now we're going to the genitive case. Genitive case does really much more than possessive, but we're going to emphasize possessiveness. Okay, and a key word. So when we do a translation for a genitive word in the genitive case, we normally use a helping word or keyword, helping word, and we normally start with of. Now there are other things that we'll add to that later, but right now it's of. So genitive usually follows, in its structure, usually follows the word it modifies. So namoi tu theou. The tu is in the genitive case is the article, and theou is in the genitive case in the noun. What word is theou?
God.
Right, except it's really of God, right?
Of God.
All right. You may or may not have the article of the God, depending upon the translation need. Okay. What about namoi? How does this word function in the sentence?
Boy.
It doesn't matter if you know what it means or not. How does it function?
In the accusative?
Well, think through that again. In the nominative case, what is the ending here? The iota?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what would be the iota in the plural ending? No, it's plural. I've already said that. Right. If you go back to here,
Masculine plural?
right, look, we have the masculine plural.
Yes, sir.
It has an omicron case stem ending, and it's a masculine plural in the nominative case. So it must be functioning as the subject. So when we get to here, we have our word namoi, tu theu. Here's our subject, and it refers to law, but it's plural, so it's laws. And then tu theu, like you said, it's God, but it's of God, laws of God, or God's hyphen possessive laws.
Okay.
What's happening there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So all we did, this is our article, the, right? And this is our word, theos, which from, all we did is we changed, and we inflected, right? We changed the case ending from its sigma to its upsilon, and now we know it's functioning. Same here, we changed it, add the upsilon. Now we know it's functioning in the genitive case, which means it's going to function predominantly as possessive. That's how we'll
So
look at
you
it.
would use that to say, like, Samuel's car. You would use this shows possession of it. So
Right.
it's
Well, Samuel is a proper name, and proper names don't generally decline. They don't generally inflect or change.
so like the man's car.
The man's car would definitely do that. That's right.
Okay. So but this shows possession. These are God's laws, not Paul's laws, not anybody else's. This is God's law. Okay.
Well, if they put Paul here, Paul.
Yeah.
I forget what Paul is in Greek. Not Pauline. I don't remember anyway. But anyway, yeah. So this is the word for law, and this is the plural form. The Nomos would be its lexical form. It's nominative, singular, masculine form, right? And I know that because of the case ending here. It's the nominative. This is the nominative, plural, masculine form, that iota, omicron iota ending, right? So we get laws of God, or God's law, showing possession, okay? And now the other thing I want to highlight here, just so you know, because it does come up, is that here is our genitive, and basically the genitive is modifying what's called the head noun. All right, so laws, namoi, is the head noun, and it's being modified for showing possession. It's God's law. It's the laws of God. So the head noun is the word that's modified. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So in the dative, again, all we're going to do is change the case ending. But now, because we changed the case ending, it's now going to function not nominatively, not as a subject, not accusatively, not as a direct object, not genitively, not as the possessive, but as the indirect object. And just like in the genitive, we had a helping word of. Okay, in the dative, we're going to have really different helping words, predominantly three of them: to, with, in, or by, and most often it would be to. Well, I say most often. We're going to start with most often to. All right, so the key words are helping words. When you translate a dative case, it's going to be in the to, with, or in, or by, to the house, or to his home, with him, in their home, or by the sword. Those would all be in the dative case. So the article, if there is one, will be in the dative case, and the word, the noun, will be in the dative case with that iota ending. Can you read this by chance?
Maka Paioi Oi To Tokoi, Tokoi, Tu, Pne,
New.
Pnu.
Yeah, you don't have to include. That could be silent here. It
Okay.
could be silent, or you could patoi, patokoi, or pneumati, or I normally do it silent. Tokoi.
Yeah, because it's
Or
hard to do the Pnu or Pata.
yeah, it is. So I normally keep it silent, and that's fine.
Okay. So
Okay. And this is a diphthong,
Pneumatai or
right?
pneumati.
It's one sound, so it's pneumati, right? So
Pneumati.
this is ma ka ri oi, right? 4 syllables. Ma ka ri oi.
Oh, I read that row as a P. I'm dumb.
Well, I didn't want to say that. That would not be appropriate.
Well, it still came across that way.
No, that's fine. Listen, I do really dumb things. Don't worry about it.
So that first word is Maka Rioi.
Yeah, and it means blessed.
Okay.
Okay, blessed are the poor, and here's the poor. And notice that this is a plural. Hoi, the koi. Look at the ending, right? That has the plural nominative case. This is also a plural nominative case. And there is no verb in this text, so you have a verb that you basically is implied. This is our nominative, and this is our nominative. And we called this last week as the predicate nominative. Remember that?
Yes,
Right?
sir.
The predicate is the verb and everything after it. But because this is in the nominative, and it's after the implied verb, blessed makarioi, we add the verb, the implied verb, blessed are the poor. Well, the poor is also in the nominative. They're both subjects, right? But one cannot, they both can't. And because we're using this verb are, a to be verb, it's more equative, more about quality, more about equating, equaling in some form, which there's more to that. But one's going to function as the subject blessed, or the predicate nominative the poor. And then we get into, here we have, let me clear this out a bit. What time is it going to be? 9:41. When do we go to? We go to 10? Well,
I think so.
Okay, the time on my iPad is always wrong when I do this.
It's 9:06 here, so it's
10:06. Okay, so we got about maybe a little more, about 10 minutes or so. That's fine. Let me clear this and just point out something here. All right, so here is the dative. All right, so notice this to and the subscript iota. Do you remember when we talked about with the alpha, eta, and iota? Or not alpha, eta, and iota. Excuse me. This is an omega. If we put an iota after it, a lot of times that will subscript.
Yeah, just go underneath it and not be pronounced.
Exactly. All right. But here's the fascinating thing. When it does that, I'm almost always in the dative case. It makes it so recognizable. All right. So here's my omega, and it's really this, right? And then what happens is it becomes, and that makes it recognizable. Almost.
So when I see that, I can say that's a date. Most
there
likely,
you go.
dative case.
There you go. That's it.
Okay.
It's a dative. Yeah, it's a dative. Now here we see the dative as well in the iota, where this is in the noun, this is in the article, right? And so we're going to use one of our helping words our keywords when we translate it. Blessed are the poor to spirit, blessed are the poor with spirit, blessed are the poor in spirit, or blessed are the poor by spirit. Pick one. Which one best fits in English, right? In blessed are the poor in spirit. And that's how we get in spirit there.
It's the same way with that word "are" there, right? It's just how it fits into the English.
Well, yes and no. Okay. This is called a verbless clause, a verbless sentence. Basically,
Yes.
a verb is implied in Greek, that doesn't. We hadn't got the verbs yet. The verb is implied, and in a Greek speaker, a Greek hearer would know automatically. Makaroya, hoi tokoi to numati would be blessed. And our English are the poor in spirit. They would hear that, but the verb itself is not there, and so we insert it and an implied verb. And this happens to be what's called one of the to be verbs, like is, was, are, right, etc. Or became,
Yes, sir.
Begot, those kind of things. Well, those and what happens here is we have a nominative case and a nominative case. That's a nominative. That's a nominative. And what happens is this becomes the subject. This becomes the predicate nominative because it's after the verb. It's still nominative, functioning subjectively, but it's associated with the verb, so it's a predicate nominative. And then we'll get more into that later. Okay, that makes sense?
Yes, sir.
But for the dative, look how easy it is to recognize. All right, dative singular. To numati. Okay. All right, so let's look at the same thing now. We're going to look at it with the entire noun paradigm, not including vocative. In the singular, right? We're doing singular. We're inflecting it. We're going to look at first declension pattern. Second declension pattern, both masculine and neuter, and first declension feminine. And now we're going to look at all 4 case endings: nominative singular, genitive singular, dative singular, and accusative singular. And so we get the words lagos, there's our case ending, lagu, lagoi, there's our dative subscriptive, and noon, lagon. And also in second declension neuter, right, second declension with the omicron, we get euangelion, eulangeliu for the genitive, and we get eulangelioi. Now, what actually happened here is it was an omicron, and basically with the iota added, this omicron gets lengthened. Remember we talked about ablaut? Or no, we're going to do that later. If you read the chapter, A-B-L-A-U-T, ablaut, where a vowel can lengthen or shorten. And so when a vowel lengthens or shortens, that's like an omicron can become or omega become an omicron. That's a long vowel going to a short vowel, or the omicron can become an omega. So that's the short vowel going to a long vowel. Same with the eta going to an alpha, or an alpha going to a eta. So that's an ablaut. That's the lengthens or shortens. That's what's happened here. That's why that omega is there. This omicron has lengthened to an omega, and then we subscript the iota. Just so you know, because it won't be on the test, and I want to do my best to confuse you and throw more data at you. That's what I like to do.
Okay.
Okay. And so we see the same pattern here. We have, if we remember, the logos, the sigma, and the noon, but now we have the genitive and the subscript omega here, just the subscript iota, and then we have the noon, or again, second declension neuter now, the upsilon for the genitive, and also the subscript iota with the omega and the data for singular. And in the first declension for feminine words, that pattern is going to be no case ending, right, with the alpha stem ending and the eta or eta stem ending. And then we had our sigma for the genitive. Now you got to realize that this is the genitive and this is the nominative for second declension masculine, and this is for first declension feminine. That's why this pattern is important. You got to recognize the genders, and that will help you. But here you notice in the dative you have a subscript. It's not with the omega, it's with the eta or alpha, either one, and we still have our name there. So that's our singular inflected pattern. I'm going to show it to you in a minute here again. I just want to do the plural real quick. Here's what's fascinating. Nothing's changed here. Lagoi in our nominative with our nominative singular, second declension masculine, and then our dative, our neuter with the alpha in the plural. Alpha, iota, and the us for the accusative. But look at this. Omega nu, omega nu, omega nu, omega nu, iota, sigma, iota sigma, iota sigma, iota sigma. It really becomes recognizable once you sort of get comfortable with the pattern. So this is the genitive plural for, I want to say logos. That's the nominative singular masculine, right? If I want to put it in the genitive to make it possessive of, would be my helping word, then I just drop the sigma and I basically lengthen the omega, and that becomes lengthen is what actually happens. And we put in the noon, and now that is a genitive plural. Same word. It's still word or message or statement, but now it's going to be of, or in a possessive form in the plural. So now it would be words, the spell of words. That would be its inflected form, right? Okay. And here's the dative. It would be in, or by, or with words.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
This is just going to be words for the accusative, and this is going to be words for the nominative plural, but we're going to add the helping words in the genitive of words, or in, by, or with words in the genitive, or in the dative. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, or to. Got to. All right, same thing here. Euangelia, there's our nominative plural. So we're talking about good news, or gospel news, plural. Possessive, right, of good news or gospel. Euangelia ois, to, or with, or by, or in the gospel. And here's our accusative. It's just going to be gospel, plural, gospels. When we get to the first declension feminine, here's our iota for the nominative plural, right? So this is love, plurals, this is kingdoms. And here's our genitive, so it'd be of loves, plural, or of kingdoms. And the dative, to, with, in, or by, loves, plural, or to, with, by, in, kingdoms, plural. And our accusative would just be loves or kingdoms. Making sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right, so here's the noun rules. Now, we already did 1, 2, and 3, right? In the dative singular, the iota subscripts, we saw that, right? If possible. There's some cases where it won't, right? So, lagoi, which was originally omega iota. What happens is that omega, and you're going to learn these rules later on, not now, but that omicron iota, that omicron lengthens to the iota, and then that becomes subscripted with the omega to subscript iota. Here's the subscript, and here's a subscript in the data with the eta, and with the alpha and the omega again. So it makes it really recognizable with that iota subscript. Just really quick. Oh, that's data.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even have to think about it, you know. And so vowels often change their link of blot. That's what we're talking about. So the laga, there's our connecting or stem ending, plus the iota is going to necessitate that this gets lengthened. It's called the blot, and so it's getting lengthened to the omega. And then we add the iota, and we end up getting the omega with the subscript iota. Now, I want you to notice this. That circumflex. There's going to be another key that says, oh, there's a change that occurred. Because I normally wouldn't get a circumflex. Now, circumflex only go on long vowels, and omega is a long vowel. It only goes on there. But normally I would get a grave or acute.
Mm-hmm.
Accent mark, but because this omega iota and the omega iota subscripted it's going to give this circumflex there and not the acute or the gray, which gives you another hint that, oh, there's something changed. And I don't know it's really necessary because it's pretty easy to recognize that omega iota. But a blout is when a vowel is lengthened or shortened. The omega can lengthen to the omicron. The omicron can shorten. Excuse me, the omega can shorten to the omicron. The omicron can lengthen to the omega. The eta can shorten to the alpha. The alpha can shorten to the eta, or can lengthen to the eta, excuse me, and some others.
Yeah.
Okay. So now rule 5, vowels often, keyword, changes their length, shorten or lengthens. And you'll see that more as you go. Now, it helps to understand that and know that because you'll see some words that, wait a minute, that spelling's off. I don't get this. Well, sometimes it's because there's an ablaut, a change, a lengthening of the vowel before it. Okay. Now rule number 6, genitive and dative, the masculine and neuter will always be identical. Right? Here's the genitive. This is the genitive singular. This is the singular dative. Here's the genitive plural. Here's the dative plural. What was the rule? The genitive and dative, the masculine and neuter will always be the same. Here's our masculine, here's our neuter. 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 They're all the same. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So now you get the paradigm for case endings and look at some of the patterns, right? Okay, sigma, nothing, noon, upsilon, sigma, upsilon. Well, I would expect this to be the same. Notice the dative singular, iota, iota, iota. Now, what happens in the singular when it comes up with alpha, eta, or omega is you'll see that iota subscript.
Iota subscript. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
but so it's still there, it's indent, but it's subscript. Noon, noon, noon. Look this iota. Now this won't subscript. This would be like the omicron iota, the alpha iota, or go away. I'm busy. And so iota, iota, alpha. You see the alpha here. That's one of our rules. Look at the genitive plural. Very straightforward. Look at the dative plural.
Yeah.
Once you begin to sort of see the patterns and recognize them and hold them close to your heart, it becomes easier to recognize how the word is functioning, what case it's in. So you begin to know the case shows you how it's functioned in the sentence, right? And you get the genitor and the number, and you can really start to really move through your translations pretty quickly. Okay, and so now with the stem ending, case with the stem endings, there's a omicron sigma. There's no stem. There's just the stem endings. Omicron nu. So it's u, as, as, u, o, a, o, on, aim, on, oi, a, on, ois, ice, ois, us, as, and you see sigma and alpha. It's almost like they switch. But so there's a lot of patterns that you can sort of recognize. But here's the pattern really. When you're looking at second declension masculine, this is the pattern you're learning. Sigma, upsilon, omega, subscript iota, noon, iota, noon, iota, sigma, upsilon, sigma. That's the pattern for second declension masculine, second declension neuter. There's our pattern right there, right there, right there. That right there, there. That's the pattern you learn. First declension, this pattern. That's the pattern. So that's what a declension is. It's following a certain pattern. You can see that pattern across the declensions and makes it easier, like the noon, 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 or the omega noon, omega noon. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. The article, same thing. You've already now, you already learned the nominative and the accusative singular, nominative and accusative plural. Now you're adding the genitive and dative. But look, you're just basically adding what you've already seen. so far. There's the own, there's that own, there's that own, there's the ois, ice, ois, and you already did the accusative. And that's really all you're doing to it. It's not real complex here. And it's about time to end. Let me see. We've got time to go through this. Okay, what I want you to do, we're going to do it for time's sake. I'll do it. Well, I'll let you do a little bit of it, okay? So let's find the subject and the direct object of this Greek sentence, okay? So and use keywords for the genitive and dative. Keep the article with the noun that it modifies. Now, so here we have halagos, that sodse. Now, I already tell you that is the verb, and that is going to be a future, and it's going to be will save. It's going to be its translation. And sukos, this is going to be meaning soul, but I'm not going to tell you whether singular or plural yet and how it's functioning. So let's go through. Halagos. How is that functioning in this sentence? What case is it? How does it function? What number is it? What gender is it?
It's masculine singular.
Right.
And it's functioning as the noun. As the main noun.
As a what?
The main noun. It'd be the
what
word.
What does main noun mean? What case is it? You only got 4 cases we've been looking at, right? Nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative. Which case is it?
It's in the nominative.
Okay, so how does the nominative function?
As the main subject.
Okay, as the subject, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is the nominative case, functioning as the subject, and you already said it's masculine, and it's singular. Okay. What about the oo?
That's genitive.
Right. How does it function?
Singular.
Sure, singular. Okay, you're right, because this singular. Right. The plural would be the omega nu. Right. But how does it function? We've only learned one way it's functioned so far.
That I can't remember the name of it. Yeah.
Possessive, right? So it's going to function.
Yeah, because it's of God.
Yeah, of God. That's right.
Okay.
Okay. And so this, how would you translate halagos?
The words of God.
Well, stop. Is it
just halagos? The words. It's.
So you're looking at the sigma and you're making it plural, but it's the word. You already said it's singular.
Yes, sir.
You said it's masculine singular. So the word of God, that's correct. Now you have, so to say, you hadn't got to that, you won't for a while. The words of God will save. And what do we do with sukos? You know what sukos means? It means soul or life. And here we have this omicron sigma ending. What would that be?
You mean alpha sigma?
Excuse me, alpha sigma. Thank you. Just about out of time here. Tell me how that functions. What case is it in? And what number?
It's plural?
Yes, plural. What case, though? Nominative, genitive, dative, or accusative?
Accusative?
Yes, very much so. Accusative. So how does it function? As the direct object, right? So that would be souls, plural. So the word of God will save souls. All right, Let's see if that's correct. And the word of God will save souls. Very much so. Very good. All right, so real quick, vocabulary, I'm just going to read them. And here we have harmatia, right? This is a first declension. And notice here's the genitive form of it. And notice you have the article here. Hey, that tells me it's feminine. It is a first declension. It really helps to identify it. Harmatia, sin, right? Feminine word. Arche, meaning, and here we have a eta in a nominative singular, So that is no case ending. And then we have our hey to confirm. That is a feminine word. And so this is going to be ruler or well, I want to say beginning. Let me go back and look. Chapter 7.
All I can think of is like archaic, so maybe beginning.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's it, but I'm just, yeah, beginning. That's right. Beginning and ruler. So beginning or ruler. Here's gar. Gar means for. It's called a post-positive word, meaning in Greek it will never appear as the first sentence, the first word. Never will appear as the first sentence. It may appear as the second, appears the first word. It may appear as the second word or the third word, but in English we'll probably translate it as the first word. Okay. Apen, it means he, she, or it said. Ace is a preposition meaning into. Excusia, also a feminine word. Feminine word. There's the genitive singular. Feminine word. This means, of course, power or authority. Evangelion. This is going to be the good news. And notice that this is a neuter word. There's our genitive form for it. So now that you sort of recognize, okay, this is a neuter second declension. There's my omicron, second declension. I can figure out the pattern. It helps me to figure out the pattern by giving me the genitive, right? So I can go my nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative. And if I know that pattern, then, well, the nominative is going to be with the noon ending. The genitive is going to be with the upsilon ending. The dative is going to be with the iota subscript ending. The accusative is going to also be with the noon ending. And I can follow my pattern in the single. We do the same thing in the plural now, right? So here's my nominative singular article in the neuter. So it helps me see the pattern. That's why they do this, so that you can see the pattern. It helps you find the pattern. Okay. Jesus, meaning Jesus, of course, or Jesus. And there we have, again, we can see that it does decline. This is the nominative singular case. Nominative singular. There's our genitive form for the singular with the upsilon ending. You can now follow the pattern. Kurios, Lord or master, with the genitive form. This is obviously here another nominative singular with the second declension. This is a second declension masculine, and there's our genitive form for it to follow the pattern. May is just like oop. Wait a minute. In chapter 6, we had. I'm going blank right now. Hold on a minute, let me find it. Ooh, yeah. I don't know why. Ooh, it's oop or oop, key, but it's oop. So that means no or not, and so does may, no or not. You'll find out why and when they're used differently. But if you ever have ooh, may, then it's an emphatic no.
It's like we're covering all bases here.
Like, oh, no. It's emphatic. Okay. Uranos, again, this is we see our masculine singular. There's our second declension connecting vowel. There's our genitive. There's our article. And this is going to be heaven or sky. Hutas, hute, hututa. It's going to be this or these. Su is going to be you. Weos, and notice the rough breathing. Weos. There's a masculine singular. There's our genitive form, masculine singular, and son. Hoste is Oh, I just went blank. Hostet, it's not therefore. Hostet is, yeah, it is therefore. That's right. Therefore, or so that. And there's your vocabulary. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. That's it. We're late. Homework. It's in the LMS. I think this aligns with that. You know, you got to do the homework for Friday. And if you have any questions or problems, give me a call, or Andres will go over them on Friday.
Yes, sir.
All right. You are 3 minutes late for class.
All right, no problem. I'll see you. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, brother. Talk to you later. I'm going to stop recording.